we're going to go right into the Intellivision Amico talk. I know that's what everybody wants to hear. And we have a special guest with us, somebody who has looked over the financials, has a better understanding of the financial situation than I do. Someone who has been making the rounds. His name has been thrown around. Rich from Review Tech threw his name around. Genovi is throwing his name around. I think I heard Pat Ian mention him. But of course, they can all talk about him, but we have him on the show. That's right. We reached out to the man himself. You probably heard his name, but you don't know his face. Neither do we because he didn't put it on camera. But we'll fucking find out. We'll talk to him right now. Unless you guys want me to talk about something else. Should we go to another?
No.
We need
No, bring him out.
Because I built it up kind of big, and I don't know if it's going to live up to the hype. So maybe we should just.
If you don't, I'll send flaming bags of dog shit to your door.
Oh,
They have a service
God
that
damn.
sends non-flaming
Carl already
bags,
getting spicy.
just so you know. So you could actually send poop to people. There's a service for that. All right, there. Let me see you hit like, sub, share this video because we're going to be talking about Intellivision, Amico by the numbers, and we have a special guest. You heard me talk about him earlier in the show. And if this is the clip and you didn't hear that part, well, you should have watched it because he is the man that is on everybody's lips. He's the one everybody's talking about. He's the one who has broken down the financial situation better than even I can do it. So we're going to bring out Mr. Australia himself. He's hanging on, clinging on to the world, and trying not to fall off. That's right. Mr. Gaterooze is in the house. What's up, Gaterooze?
Gaterooze.
What's up?
Hell,
Yo,
am I
what
going to live
up?
up to that intro? Hey, guys. Oh, it's going to be a big disappointment, I'm sure.
So we've heard lots of things about the financials. We've heard lots of things about what the money situation is, whether or not this is a big deal, whether or not, people are going to get their pre-orders back. So why don't you enlighten us? Because like I said, you got the numbers a lot better than I do. You've wrapped your mind around them. You've read them. Break down the financial situation from your perspective. You're not an expert, not claiming you are, but you're just someone who has a better understanding.
Yeah, thanks for saying I'm not an expert because that was the first thing I was going to say. So don't take my words as canon or anything. I'm just giving my interpretations and opinions on what I'm seeing. But I've got some first-hand experience from founding startups and getting investors and so on. So, I can give you a bit of a different interpretation from that angle. Where do you want me to start?
I guess start from the least important part and then go to the most, or from the least scary part. However you want to start. You're the man. You do it.
Sure. Well, look, one of the things I did want to say is I don't want to do a both sides thing because they're completely unequal sides. But while there's been a ton of misinformation from Intellivision side, there has been a little, I don't want to say misinformation, but misinterpretation from the critical side. And I'm thinking mainly the larger outlets here. I saw.
I was going to kick you off the show if you said me.
Yeah. No, you've been great. Genovi's been great. No Swear Gamer. They've all been pretty much spot on. But I've seen a lot of the bigger, like, clickbait headlines of Intellivision admits they may never get a console out. That's not the takeaway from these filings. There's a germ of truth when the defenders of Intellivision say that you put in any kind of risk into those filings. And I'll explain that a little bit more if you're interested. But a lot of these headlines have just picked up on what I don't consider specific risks. Some of them are on the more generic risk side, and they picked up on those and shouted them from the rooftops. So I do agree there's been a little bit of misinterpretation on the anti-Amico side as well. So I guess first I should cover that, just so you know, okay, this is something I've got to get a hard on about. And that basically is all of those things where they say we may never release a console, we may never have an operating console, etc., etc. The way those risks work, you're correct, Tony, in that you only have to put specific risks. Under the SEC rules, one of the other chaps on Reddit posted a link to it, and I read them up. The SEC only requires material risks. So risks that are, wouldn't say likely, but a possibility for your business. And we're not talking 1% risk. We're talking probably 50% or greater risk. So those are the only ones you're required by law to put in, the material risks. However, as a business, you want to put in as many risks as possible in that document. The reason for that is when you're securing an investor, now I don't know if it's the same through these crowdfunding investment sites. So they seem pretty flimsy to me, to be honest. But when you are dealing directly with a venture capitalist, you have to go through due diligence. And as part of that, you have to sign a document, or it can be part of the sale contract, but it will delineate warranties and representations. And basically, in that section, you'll say, all of the information I provided or the company has provided during this due diligence is fair and correct, true and correct. If something goes wrong with your company and that investor tries to sue you, the easiest action that they can take, the easiest claim they can take, is a breach of your warranty and representation clause. That way they don't have to prove that you did things wrong. That's the harder way. You don't have to prove you ran the business into the ground, because that's really hard to prove. All you have to do is say you breached that one clause that said everything I told you was true. And you can interpret not disclosing a risk as a breach of that warranty. Okay, so it's in your best interest as a company to put any kind of crap, because then if something goes wrong, you're protected by that warranty to the extent that you've properly disclosed it to the purchasing party. Okay. So that's why that filing is so full of risks. It's a defensive mechanism for Intellivision. It's not to protect the consumer. It's to protect themselves. Okay.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And what can you tell us about the loans from Intellivision executives towards the company? Is this a normal startup company behavior? Is this something unusual?
Sure. There's a both yes and no answer to that. The fact that there are director loans, totally normal, absolutely normal. In fact, it's, I would say, more common than not. In our case, we definitely had them. So again, that's not a takeaway from this. Oh boy, they loaned all this money to the company. That's nothing. That's irrelevant. The issue is the terms of those loans. In my experience, and everyone's mileage is going to vary, but in my experience, founders' loans are generally at 0% interest. You do not charge interest to your own company. I've never, in businesses I've been involved in, never seen that.
No, I just want to ask real quick. We're talking about like the Sudesh deal, right?
No. Oh, no. Oh, it goes much deeper than that.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll real quick. I will, for everyone's on the same page. Tommy, Nick Richards, and I believe, the hell's his name?
Dave Perry and Steve Roney.
And Steve Roney. They all loaned Intellivision money at various points in time with a 2.5%. Was it
per month
compounded interest?
Yeah. Well,
I didn't
look up. Go ahead.
Well, I didn't want to ask something out of curiosity. Is it very possible that the investors can sue Intellivision?
can do.
Can
do you mean,
sue
sorry?
Intellivision.
Oh,
Is
sue.
it
Sorry. No, it's really difficult.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, look, basically, you've got certain fiduciary duties as a director, and you'd have to prove a breach of that. Now, just loaning money to the company, that's not a breach of that, as long as they're on reasonable commercial terms. So you could just go and say, well, look, if we had gotten the loan from this outside party, it would have been on similar terms. And then you're protected. There's nothing they can do about that.
Right,
that's not to say it's not unethical, just that it's not illegal.
Okay.
Look, there could be other things that you could sue them for, but I definitely don't have any information of anything like that.
Yeah, and just real quick to Carl's point, in the U.S. at least, you can sue anybody for just about anything. Whether or not it actually gets further into the legal process beyond I sued you, that's up to the the courts and everything. So I mean, I could sue Carl for breach of contract for not showing up on the show, and then the court just throws it out because it's a frivolous lawsuit. So I mean, saying can someone sue, that's always one of those issues. Like, yeah, anybody can sue. Will
Whether
they
they're going to win or
Is there
not.
any possibility of winning?
Yeah.
Probably not. But,
yeah, it's very unlikely. And yeah, just for anyone entertaining a fantasy of Tommy and leg irons getting hauled off, it's not. That I believe they genuinely tried to do a good job and start a good business and release a good product. I don't think there was any kind of scamming at that point in time. My opinion on what's happened in the last 2 weeks possibly changed slightly, but up until then, I don't think they did anything wrong apart from mismanage things. Anyway, so yeah, back to the loans. The issue comes in. Look, so there's nothing that unusual about the loans. It's usually a kind of a good thing. It shows. Look, as an investor, you prefer to have a director's loan than a third-party loan, because if it really got in the shit, you can potentially pressure that person to waive that loan, where an outside party is never going to do that. So, it's not that bad. In fact, sometimes when an investor comes on, they will force you to waive it before they give you any money. I've seen that happen. So where the bad side of it comes in are the specific terms of those loans. And frankly, they're predatory. My opinion, that the terms seem very harsh for what's essentially your own company. So to give you an example, I mean, you all know the Sudesh example. That's a whole nother ballpark.
Right.
But just the normal loans that they've done, for example, Tommy and Nick, the terms of interest on those loans, we've probably heard people say it's a 10% per annum interest. That alone is bad enough. I mean, that's way higher than commercial rates currently. Interest rates are in the toilet. They're nothing. In fact, aren't they still 0%, your official cash rate? So, I mean, commercial loans shouldn't be more than 5%. So already it's predatory, but that's not the whole story. The actual terms of those loans are the first month, it's 1.5% interest on the entire principal for that 1 month. The second month, 2% on the entire principal for that 1 month. And then the third month is 2.5%. And the same for every month up until January 1st last year. Now, we don't know exactly how long because they give a kind of range of times when the loan started, but I've run some calculations simulating what the interest would have been compounding for that period, and it seems to be anywhere up to, it's probably more like between 8 and 10 months of 2.5% per month. So we're talking an annualized interest rate of like 28% for the first year that they had this money.
And is this
that's just crazy?
Compounded interest or just?
I can't say 100% sure. I don't want to give information, so I want to make it clear I don't know for sure. I would expect it would be, but I don't know for sure.
So Tommy Tallarica basically shafted his own company. Am I getting this right?
Yeah.
That's the way I would see it.
Well,
Like, if
wow.
I was an
Why would he
investor
do that? Why would he do that, though? Like,
Well,
do you have an idea?
You guys.
Yes.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate. Okay. So here's the thing: if Tommy collects on these loans, then yes, he has shafted the company big time.
Right.
But if, like Gaterooze says, they just waive it and they just basically like the loan never happened, like don't worry about it, don't have to pay me back, then no, right? But we're not in. We haven't crossed the Rubicon yet. We're still at the. We don't know what they're gonna do with the loans.
Mm-hmm.
And on one hand, they can potentially still collect on them and say, "Hey, you owe me money." Where on the other hand, they could just be like, "Well, don't worry about it."
We have some information. They have paid Tommy $283,000 of his loan back to him last year. Well, sorry, between December of 2020 and January. So around January last year, they paid him back $284,000
So
to
wait,
reduce the loan.
hold on real quick. Let me so we can all understand this, because I know some people have trouble understanding financial numbers. I believe Retro Bro and Rab and them, and they were like, it's really hard and difficult to understand numbers and stuff, and that's why they had to explain it to us. But they paid back Tommy 284,000. You said
283,905.
283,000 and change, in a company that's made $0 of revenue. Where
Yep.
would that money come from to pay him?
Okay, so here's the tricky part. I know what you want me to say is it's come from investor funds. We can't absolutely say that just because of the timing of it. We don't know if the investor funds were deposited at that time. It's around, I believe it's around the time of the FIG money, but I can't say for sure.
But it's definitely not coming from any sales that they've made.
Fuck no.
Okay.
No.
Just
Well,
make
look,
that clear.
hey, if it was coming from sales, the only place it could have come from sales are the pre-order deposits, and that would be even worse.
Right, because
to be fair, they did make a little bit of money off of the physical media.
Physical media.
Well,
and T-shirts.
If you look at the physical media, I think it was peanuts.
Right.
Just because the cost of creating them and shipping them and so on. I don't think they made a whole lot out of that, and they really didn't sell many of them.
Just so we're clear, because I know people are like, man, Tony's asking stupid questions and he's making stupid comments. I'm basically right now I'm presenting things that I know are going to be said in response to these type of videos and statements. They'll come out and say, well, they sold physical media and they did this and X, Y, and Z. So we're just trying to preemptively,
No, that's reasonable. And I'll throw you another one. There was some equity investment in the company, so Tommy could have been paid out of those funds, and other directors were loaning money. I mean, what if they took, hey, here's Dave Perry's money, and we're going to send that to Tommy? We don't know. The thing is, money's fungible. It all goes into a bucket and then comes back out. So you can't really say this was investor money that it wasn't.
And also, there are options, I believe, in some of the loans, not all of them, but in some of the loans to change those into stocks. They have stock options, but I don't believe
correct.
A single investor has taken that up yet.
No, I mean, we're pretty confident saying no, because they do list all of the equity transfers in there, and they're not listed. So unless they did it in the 2 weeks since this was written, probably not. I should point out there are 2 loans that have no interest on them. That was one to Dave Perry and one to Steve Roney. That they had one each that did have interest and one that didn't.
Yeah. And again, like I said in my video earlier, we don't have the 2021 numbers, but I would imagine if these numbers were in any way good or heading towards good, like, hey, we haven't gotten all the stuff written down, but we're just going to let you know that the numbers are going to be good, and we've stamp down some of the debt and whatever. I'm sure somebody at some point would have came out and said, hey, whether it was Nick, Phil Adams, Tommy, they've been showing up in the comments, and I don't see any of them showing up saying, hey, by the way, the 2021 numbers are a lot better. Just wait for a couple of days where they get you those numbers.
Nick, well, he didn't say that because they're not allowed to make misrepresentations like that. But what he said was someone did ask for them, and he replied and said, we're working to get those audited and we'll update when they're available. But that's been 5 days. So, I'm not expecting to see those. After the firestorm from these ones, if I was them, I wouldn't release them.
So,
however,
they're not obligated to release them either, are they?
Not to what's it called, Start Engine. They're not obligated there. If it was an institution, a venture capitalist, institutional investor, they would absolutely demand to see them audited or not.
Okay.
But that's private. They're not going to release those publicly.
Yeah, unless you got a whole bunch of money that you're potentially going to invest in Amico, you're not going to see those numbers.
Right.
I can pretty much guarantee that.
And look, another caveat, because we do have to make it clear, we don't know for sure all of these things. I don't think this is deliberate, but for all of these loans, they give time ranges for them. For example, on Tommy's loan, it says between November 2019 and August 2021, Tommy loaned the company XYZ. That says to me there were multiple packets of loans during that period, but we don't know the breakdown. We don't know exactly when and so on.
Yeah, and I believe all the loans except for Tommy's are worse off now than they were, before. They only paid back Tommy some money, and the rest have increased in the amount owed. Is this correct?
That's right. Yeah, Tommy's, because they paid a big chunk of it back, he hasn't accrued as much interest. And yeah, all the others except for the non-accruing ones, they've blown out. I mean, one of them started off at 300 grand. It's now owing 680,000 on it, just because of all that accrued interest at those rates.
Yeah.
So in fact, the interest that's accrued and owing is about 1.2 million on directors' loans.
Yikes.
Yeah. Now, to be fair to them, this is the kind of statement you can give without committal, and it does you no harm. So take it with a grain of salt. But Nick did respond to a comment on Start Engine about this, and he said, we're in talks with some of the directors to potentially waive interest for the next period, like, the next few months. He didn't say exactly. And to potentially reduce some of the accrued interest.
So
if
go ahead.
No, you go ahead, mate.
Well, I was just thinking, so in the scenario of all these GoFund pay website resources, could the loans made by Tommy and company interfere with those people getting their investment back?
On some of them, yes. So the Fig and Republic ones, no, has no bearing whatsoever on theirs. They're taking a revenue share off the top, so they don't give a crap.
Okay.
I don't know the terms of the fundable one. I don't know if that was equity, so can't comment there. This current one, the Start Engine one, absolutely, that's going to chew into their profits. And that'll happen in two ways. So one is, if the interest keeps accruing, they're going to have to be paying that down every year. So the annual profits are going to be, a few $100 grand lower just from the interest payments they're making. So obviously less profit, less dividends that are going to go out. The second way is they have to pay that principal down at some point. So if you look at it this way, they're going to have to make a few million extra before the company is out of debt. before it's back to break even. So all these things are going to impact the investment that happens now. And really, that's the big takeaway. I know a lot of people say, "Oh shit, they're $7 million in debt. That's terrible." Absent of any other facts, that's not terrible. That's nothing. That's totally normal for a startup. If you had come and said to me 2 weeks ago, Intellivision $7 million in debt, I'd say, yeah, I'd expect that.
Well, I was just going to say, well, here's the thing. In your honest opinion, with the way that the current what's the fundraising thing that they're on right now?
Start Engine.
Yeah, on Start Engine, what they have acquired at this point. What's your honest opinion on where you see the company headed in that 6 to 7 month time frame that they've listed under their risks and whatnot?
Judging from the trajectory of that crowdfund, which is horrendous, they must be having a pit in their stomach right now, looking at that every day. The last 8 hours, they've had zero money added to that investment.
Right.
8 hours ago, they had $500 added. A full 24 hours before that, $0. So it's horrific. So based on that, and based on their words, because that's all I can take is their words in their disclosure document, they basically are screwed. I mean, there's no way around it. Sorry, there is one way around it, but the only way around it is they have some plan B that was not in that disclosure document. Okay, everything in that disclosure document, nothing can save them based on what they wrote in that document.
Right, and the only reason why I really asked this is I kind of went over the the interview with Phil Adam the other night, and they asked him the direct question whether or not the Amico was coming out 100%, and he kind of wavered on that question and said yes. And then about I want to say a couple minutes after, he had said yes, but there was a caveat to it that we're going to try. Yeah. So we really didn't get I want to say it was kind of a straight answer at first, but then kind of went back on it a little bit. So I didn't know whether that was a direct yes. We're gonna ship these out, and as far as I see it, with the way that the Start Engine money is going right now, that they aren't gonna be able to even get Founders Editions out. At least that's my take on it.
All right, real quick, I want to get to this comment from Ninja Kitty. Big fan of the show, big fan of the channel, big friend of ours. He says, $8 million debt on a tech startup is normal when you're dealing with software. On a retail product with nothing ready to go, it's horrendous. Yeah, I think that's the you got to look at the big picture. If it's $8 million in debt and you're like, whoa, they actually started production, they got all these games finished, they did X, Y, and Z, all the ducks are in a row. That I think would be okay, right? You'd be like, well, yeah, they got debt, but they're ready to pay it back. They're ready to, to make money, or they already started making money selling consoles. But they're $8 million in debt right now, with 50 games in development, 20 close to being finished.
And I think that's a good reason why we've got so much pushback, right, Tony?
Yeah, because like I said, you got 20 nearing completion. You got a console that still hasn't done its preliminary run in order to make sure that the line or whatever it is they're producing it on is, able to manufacture them in a timely manner without any errors or mistakes. There's been no QA done on it. They got pilot plastics as far as they've gotten, Go ahead, Carl.
It just seems like the only way this thing will ever get saved is supernatural intervention.
No, pretty much.
To be fair,
there are options. Yeah,
that's divine intervention, Carl.
Or virgin sacrifices.
Oh shit!
To be fair,
I mean, they have the resources to do it.